Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from caringourway.com, and we're taking a soul break. We take a soul break once a month, and it's a break from whatever weighs too heavy or or feels too discouraging. Our soul breaks last just about 20 minutes. It's just an opportunity for you to receive a message of comfort from me. Today, we're going to take a break from decisions, feeling the pressure of always having to make a decision and to know the right decision at the right time for the right situation. So let's take a break. Okay, so when I was looking for an image that represented what it's like to always be making decisions, this is the one that really stood out to me because the doors look the same, but we don't know what's behind the doors. So how do we decide? And I think that's how it can feel when we are constantly making a decision. How do we know what's on the other side of the door? And that's part of our weariness about making a decisions. We gather all the information we can. We ask for insights. We have a sounding board. We journal. We consider pros and cons. I mean, we do everything we can to feel good about the decision we make. And yet we never really know what's on the other side. So I've got some questions for you to think of with the goal of taking a break from looking at all these doors and wondering what's on the other side. So my first question to you is, what can you release? What can float away? When I think about our weariness around decisions, we can sometimes hold on to this idea we must be perfect, that we cannot make a bad decision. And what if we release that pressure and instead decide it's not about making perfect, it's about making good? We also might hold on to the idea that we're the only ones who could make a decision. What if we release that and think about who else could make a decision with us? What's something you're holding on that you can release? And I love this image because you just feel this floating. I love the colors. I love how easy it feels to release. So, what have you been holding on to in terms of expectations about you as the decision maker that are holding you back? And instead, what can you release? You might be holding on to the idea that a decision is one and done. You could release that and embrace the knowledge that a decision today is today's decision, and giving yourself permission to change the decision as information and situations and experiences change can be freeing. What will you release? The other piece of this is, if really and truly you are the only decision maker, you could release your frustration that you are the only decision maker. Release it. Release it. And stand tall in your ability to make good decisions. Here's my next question to you. What wisdom can you unlock? I think when we are in a decision-making process, we look externally, which is really helpful. It's also important to look internally. What is the wisdom that you hold about the situation, about the circumstances, about the resources, about what's worked in the past, about what worked, what didn't work in the past, and what could work now? You have wisdom you can tap into. I love the idea about thinking, it's the wisdom I'm going to unlock. So you could gather all the external resources to help you with the decision and then bring in your wisdom. So you feel like, wow, I brought in the best of both worlds in order to make the decision that feels right today, knowing I can change, adjust, tweak, revise the decision later. How will you unlock your wisdom? The other part of decision making that can feel intense is the pressure and the deadline around making a decision. My question for you related to this image is, how can you take time as you consider a decision? And taking time could be 5 minutes. It could be overnight. It could be 24 hours. Depending on the decision, you could determine how much time you could take to really sit with it. And I love this image because we can sit with it in a relaxed state. We don't have to pace or fret or wring our hands. We can sit with it. We can bring in nature, which is beautiful and comforting and refreshing. We could have a cup of tea, a glass of water, something that nourishes us, and take time. Close our eyes and just take time with the decision. And when we want to take time, we can let others who might be waiting for the decision that we are going to take 5 minutes just to reflect. In addition, when you take time, it could be that you say a prayer, you make one last phone call, you journal, you do one last pro and con list, just one last time to reflect on the decision. That's taking time. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge amount of time to be effective. It can be 5 minutes where you just take some solitude, some quiet reflection to really think through, what's the decision? So the three questions that I asked are, what can you release? What wisdom can you unlock? And how can you take time? In all our soul breaks, we also take a few moments to really think about, what do we believe? And for our soul break from decisions, you can think through, what do you believe about your decision-making process? What do you believe about your ability to make good decisions? Your belief statements then can help you feel confident. I believe I've created the best decision-making process I can. I believe I make decisions based on both a practical and compassionate viewpoint. These belief statements become reminders for you. When you start to second guess and doubt, you can turn to a belief statement and think, that's right. I have really worked on my decision making process, and it's a good one. It's worked in the past, which is why I can trust it will work today. I am basing my decisions both on practical and realistic information and situations and bringing in my heart, my compassion, so that it's a really beautiful blend of both worlds. And that's why I know I can make a good decision. I'm being practical and thoughtful. What do you believe about the decisions that you've made and the decision making process you've created? When you are starting to doubt, you can turn to these belief statements as proof, as evidence. And then our belief wheel helps us get a little more specific about what we might believe as it relates to categories of decisions we might be making. For instance, you might have a decision making process that you use at work. And then you think, you know what, I believe I can bring some of those processes from work into how we celebrate as a family during holidays. I believe that I can make decisions about the dreams I pursue, even during a personal caregiving experience, and how I keep my commitment to pursuing these dreams. I believe I bring courage into every decision, which means I am brave. And my brave moments will be my proudest moments. I believe I can make good decisions about my health every day. And every day I can take a few moments to decide what's healthy for me today. What was healthy for me yesterday might be different than what is healthy for me today. And that's good to be open to making a different decision based on the day, the time, where I am, what I'm doing. I believe I can bring values and the set of values that I hold dear into my decisions, which can help guide me to make the best decisions. You could create one belief statement based on one of the categories on the wheel, or you could create 8 different belief statements, whatever works for you. If helpful, as you're facing a decision, you could also look to this belief wheel for inspiration as to the system you use to decide. For instance, you could say, you know what, this decision is going to impact my health. So I'm going to think through what's important about my health right now. I'm going to consider how I can take into account my good health as I consider this decision. And you could think about health as your stress, your overwhelm, your worries. So it's the emotional piece. You could think about your health as physically. What physically are you capable of in terms of good health? You know, we make decisions all the time during our day. I don't think realize how many we do. And I think about the decision, for instance, to take a walk. And there are some days I think, I just do not want to take a walk. And I will tell myself, it's not going to kill you to take a walk. If you don't take a walk, it might. Now, that sounds very dramatic. In my head, though, it gets me out to take a walk because I think, oh my heavens, I see how important this walk is to my longevity and to my good health. And it makes me think about sitting on the couch in a different way. If I sit too much on the couch, that's going to be detrimental to my health. So the belief statement I have about what will help me helps me take that walk. And that can be helpful when I'm deciding if I want to take a walk. We also can have a belief statement around our decision to rest, which is the thing we don't do, which is rest, to take a few moments just to rest. So interestingly enough, one of my questions to you earlier was, how can you take time? And in essence, it's how can you take time to rest with the decision? And I think if we have a belief about the importance of rest, it can help us decide when we need rest. If you think about the past 5 days, for instance, and you think, boy, I've been running emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, I've been running. The decision then is a good one to rest. I've earned this rest. So when we start to think, I should keep going, I can keep going, we can instead think, you know what, the better decision is to stop and rest. So these different belief statements we create can help us with even the smallest decision. What will we eat? What will our fruits and vegetables be for the day? What will we buy at the grocery store? Okay, so here's our last image. And I was thinking about how sometimes what hurts us or makes it hard to make a decision is the clutter in our life, and, and especially the clutter in our head. We get so cluttered with worries and doubts, stress, anxiety. And if we can clear that away, we can find a clearer path to the right decision. And when I was thinking about clear, I was thinking about water. And what I was trying to find was like clear water in the Caribbean. But I found this image instead, and I thought, okay, that really says a lot to me. So we could see the water, and we can see what's interesting is the movement of the water. We also see clearly the goggles, and we can see through the goggles. And I think if we can clear away the mud so we can see clearly, we can see our way to a good decision. Sometimes the mud that makes it harder to make a decision is our desire to please others. I don't want someone to be mad at me about this decision, even though it's the right decision. Or our worry that we're going to have to communicate the decision and people will say, no, that's not right, even though you know it's right. So if we can clear that all away and just focus on what's the decision, what's most important to keep in mind about this decision, we can see clearly and find our way to the good decision. So it's clearing the mud. So you're left with a clear vision. So again, my question for you about this image is, what can I clear? You know, sometimes it's about clearing the room too. If you're in a room with lots of people that are really telling you what's best for them rather than what's best in terms of a decision, you might be able to just say, I need to clear the room for a minute. Or what you do is you clear the room by going out of the room. So what can you clear? So the right decision is easy to see. Okay, that's our soul break for today. Thank you guys for being here today. And we do this every third Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So you're always welcome to join me live. And I post the archive of all our soul breaks on caringourway.com. And I think we are just about at 3 years of archives of soul breaks. So that's just almost 36 different soul breaks. So they're all 20 minutes. So hopefully that feels like it's doable as a resource. Okay, thanks everybody for being here. I wish you
Thank
guys,
you.
yeah, I wish you
Thank you.
guys a good weekend.
Okay. You
And
too.
thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.